All right, let's call this meeting of the Community-Oriented Policing Committee to order. And it's January 13th, 2025. It's 2:04. And clerk, call the roll.
Mayor Minto.
I'm here.
Sheriff's Department Captain Hernandez.
Here.
Santee School District Mike Olander.
Here.
Santee Chamber of Commerce Kristen Dare.
Present.
CASA Donna Colbert. Here. Linda Roach.
Here.
Dr. Mark Foreman.
Present.
Mike Aiken.
Here.
Steve Stellman.
Here.
Peter Deal.
Here.
And we've got our honorary member, Danette McLagan.
Here.
And the Institute for Public Strategies, David Shorey.
David who?
Here. We do have a quorum present, Mayor, with
Great, thanks. Hey, thanks for being here. First meeting of the new year. Well, so happy New Year. Welcome back. And we have a new member here today, Peter Deal. Welcome, Peter. Glad to see you.
Thank you. Thank you for the privilege.
I haven't seen you in a while. You're filling in pretty good.
I did. I've been trying to not fill in other places and distract.
Okay. Well, just to let you know that even though this is a regular meeting, Brown Act and all that kind of stuff, we're kind of informal. And so I'll kind of go down the row each time and see who has something to say, talk about what's on the agenda, things like that. And, you know, I screw up more than everybody, so don't worry about if you get something right or wrong. Sound good? And anybody else that's new? Now, are you a permanent new or permanent temporary?
I'm permanent.
Okay. And I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name.
I'm Donna Colbert from CASA, taking the place of Dana Stevens.
Is it DONN?
Yes.
Okay. I got to catch up on everybody here. And who else is new? Well, you're new. You're Christine. Is it CH? And let's see, anybody else over here new? I don't think so. All right. Sounds good. Okay, let's get the show on the road. And you're not new either. I've seen you before.
You have. And you come back anyway.
I come back anyways. I'm like a bad penny. I keep turning up. All right, then. We did roll call. We're all here. And let's say, is there a motion to approve the October 14th, 2024 and December 9th, 2024 regular meeting minutes?
I'll motion to approve with a very slight change on page 2. James, I just noticed at the top the header says September, should say October. But with that suggested change, I motion to approve both the October and December meeting minutes.
Good catch. Is there a second?
I second.
I have a second. Did you get that motion second?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Call the roll for vote.
Mayor Minto.
Yes.
Sheriff's Department Captain Hernandez.
Yes.
Santee School District Mike Olander.
Yes.
Santee Chamber of Commerce Kristen Dare.
Yes.
CASA Donna Colbert.
Yes.
Linda Roach.
Yes.
Dr. Mark Foreman.
Yes.
Mike Aiken.
Yes.
Steve Stellman.
Yes.
And Peter Deal is still in the process of clearing background, so he can't officially vote yet, but next meeting he should be able to.
That sounds good. And just so everybody understands Danette's relationship here, she unfortunately moved out of Santee, so in order to sit as a committee member, she has to be a resident. But I really have liked her input all these years, and so I created kind of this honorary position so that we can still hear from you and have you on the dais. And you just can't be a voting member is all.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. I am glad to be here. I find this meeting very informative and useful, and I'll still throw my 2 cents in every once in a while.
I appreciate that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Don't stop short of a half a cent, though. All right, then. So that works out. And then, I'm sorry. Were there any no votes? I didn't think I heard any. I just came from another meeting, and it was really lively and a little contentious, and we had to take votes over and over again because it was always a tie vote. And man, I'll tell you what, I really taxed some of my experiences at chairing meetings. So, but we got through it. It's a lot of fun. So now I'm gonna have to redirect myself. So. I'm not going there. Updates on neighborhood watch and crime prevention. Christine?
I'm still pretty new.
You need to turn on your microphone.
I've only been at the station about 2 weeks, so I'm going to hit the ground running, and I'm going to get up to speed as quick as possible. I did go out with our crime suppression team this morning to my first homeless abatement. So that was eye-opening.
Did you have fun?
It was cold.
Oh, yeah.
It was cold this morning.
It was very cold this morning.
So looking forward, really excited to be here in Santee.
Well, good. Well,
Looking
we're happy to
forward
have you here.
to working with everybody. So thank you for having me.
And don't worry, we'll give you plenty of work to do.
Okay. I love being busy, so
Good.
send it all my way.
Good. All right. Let's see. Well, let's go to our presentation on tobacco retailer licensing program. Da, 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 da.
Ta-da. I'm going to introduce to you my new executive director, my boss. Her name is Donna Colbert. And she's going to open us up with some facts about youth tobacco use. And then I'll take it over from her when she gives it to me.
Thank you. We're going to have some fun show and tell also, which is always a good time. Here's some of the topics that we're going to discuss today. Definition of tobacco. I'll be brief. Death toll, youth initiation, vaping epidemic, trending products, California's flavor law, protecting Santee's youth through a more comprehensive tobacco retail license ordinance, and how tobacco retailer licensing works. So the state ordinance describes tobacco as natural and synthetic nicotine and products that deliver it. And you can see all these beautiful colors and fun and exciting flavors. We'll get a little bit more into that. So cigarette smoking kills an estimated 500,000 folks in America every year. This year and next year and the next year and the next year. And we like to point out that in 2021, nearly 500,000 people died in the U.S. from coronavirus. And that was all hands on deck. Everyone was rushing to, put a Band-Aid on that, do long-term prevention. And yet here we are still year after year with 500,000 folks passing away in America due to secondhand smoke and tobacco. So among youth who start smoking before age 18, 1/3 will quit and 2/3 will have a lifelong addiction to nicotine. And half of them will die of tobacco-related disease. 95% of adult smokers started when they were underage, and 75% of adult smokers wish they could have quit. 50% have tried to quit in the last year. So when there was just tobacco with cigarettes, we saw the decrease. It was decreasing year after year with prevention and education. And then in 2011, electronic smoking devices came about. You can see from left to right, first they looked real similar to cigarettes, and they've progressed over the years to the far right, looks like a Apple Watch. They're purposely made to hide. So a lot of students are being caught with them in high schools. They look like highlighters, flash drives. I think that was a little bit in the past because we don't see that a lot. We'll be sharing some more of those in a minute. Recently, I went to a conference in Long Beach, and there's a new market for Tiffany Blue, marketing Tiffany Blue, elegant, upscale smoking devices that are coming. Here's some more of these fancy products, and we have some that we're going to pass around to. Okay. So the difference in nicotine in these, you'll see cigarettes have 20 milligrams of nicotine for a pack, all the way to 590 for the Elf bar. And so, they forget how many times they're hitting that a day. It's repetitive, it's a habit forming like cigarettes. And so we see how much that's increased. So while tobacco sales to underage individuals have always been illegal, in 2022, California banned flavors similar to the devices we're passing around. There's one that's like a video game, looks, made for kids, obviously marketing to youth. And these flavors include things like grape and bubble gum. I'm not sure how many adults would choose that kind of tobacco, but again, marketing towards our youth. So prevention is critical. If young people don't start using tobacco by age 26, they almost certainly will never start. And there are many things we can do locally to keep our kids and our teens tobacco-free. With youth access, increases early initiation. And Rebecca's going to take it from here.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm Rebecca Brandstetter, and I work for Donna at CASA, Community Action Service and Advocacy. And one of our main focuses is to keep young people away from harmful substances. That's what we do. And tobacco is one that is very easy for kids to get and very hard to quit. The earlier you start, brain science will tell you the younger you start, the harder you're hooked. So what we recommend and what we would present to this group to think about is a strong tobacco retailer license ordinance in the city of Santee. A tobacco retail license allows the city to look after its kids, to do the enforcement that the state cannot and therefore does not do, because there's so many retailers and the state has so few people to do it. The other thing that I wanted to kind of seed this conversation with is that the enforcement, the compliance testing does not necessarily have to be done by a sworn officer. It can be done if the tobacco retail license is an administrative action against a license. It doesn't require a sworn officer for enforcement. So that's another way that we keep the public safety resources focused on public safety and crime intervention and crime prevention. So I want to just keep that in mind. The way a tobacco retail license works is that the retailers in the city who want to sell tobacco would apply for a license with the city. These can be cost recovery a program so that the fees pay for the enforcement and the compliance testing. And because Santee is a charter city, you can set the fees and the fines as best benefits the city in what you're trying to do. What we have found is that rigorous, consistent compliance testing is what works. It gets the access down. Violators, when they realize that you're serious about it, retailers realize you're serious about it, they make it their business to make sure that they do not sell to underage purchasers. If there are meaningful penalties for violations, they're even more incentivized to make sure that everybody who is operating the cash register in their store is checking the licenses, checking the IDs of purchasers. And then if you have a program whereby you recheck violators regularly, you can move the consistent bad actors out of the tobacco selling business with alacrity and protect Santee's kids, Santee's young lungs. We have a real close by example of how tobacco retail licensing works around here. El Cajon has had a tobacco retail license program for, I want to say, going on 20 years. They check every retailer annually. They test every retailer for compliance with the sales to underage purchasers. And it's part of getting the license. It's expected. So the progressive penalties are also something that makes people understand and take you seriously. There's a meaningful fine. The first violation is a $2,500 fine. The second violation is the fine plus a suspension. Third violation, a longer suspension and the fine. And with the fourth violation, your license is revoked forever. Since I've been working with CASA the past 3 years, only one has had 4 violations within 36 months and had their license revoked forever. Because it's a cost recovery program, there is no cost to the city taxpayers, which is an easier way for people who are responsible to city taxpayers and are city taxpayers to swallow the idea of it. And then continuous and rigorous monitoring ensures success. When El Cajon started this, I'm doing this from memory, which used to be pretty good, but there was like a 25% violation. With the regular compliance within 10 years, the violation rate was down to 1%. I mean, it worked. Then we had vapes introduced, and then the minimum age went up, and things changed a little bit. But we're getting back into where it ought to be. So a comprehensive tobacco retail license in Santee could eliminate flavored tobacco products. These are the ones that flavors hook kids. It could end tobacco sales at pharmacies. That's an option for you because it almost doesn't make sense that a place that's supposed to have products that make you better would also sell things that, if used as designed, would kill you. And then prohibit using coupons and discounts. Kids are very sensitive to price, very sensitive to price. What we would recommend is that you would check the ID of every purchaser. There are various apparent age exemptions. For the state, it's 27. If they look under 27, you got to check their ID. In the unincorporated counties, if they look under 30, you got to check the ID. It's very subjective. If you check every ID, then you're golden. There's also an option for density restrictions, how many in the city, how far apart they need to be, if they need to be a certain amount of distance apart from, like you did with your cannabis dispensary ordinance. Do they need to be removed from or distant from child-sensitive areas? These are some options that you can do. But the thing about requiring every ID to be checked is it's almost idiot-proof. Because if you're under 21, your license is going to be vertically oriented. If you're over 21, it's like everybody here, I'm sure, has the license that's oriented horizontally, right? And then they tell you at what year you're going to be the age. It's if the clerks consistently check every ID, there will never be a problem. And the nice thing about the cost recovery issue is the fewer violations you have, the cheaper the fee can be. You can reduce the fee when everybody's doing their part to keep Santee's kids safe. So these are, I'm just going to kind of blow through this real quick, but there are things that you can put in there that would also make the neighborhood safer for kids. There are quite a few of the 18 cities in the county that have adopted a tobacco retail license. Around here, it's La Mesa, it's El Cajon, and it's unincorporated San Diego County, Lemon Grove. So the 4 cities that I think of as East County cities, 3 of the 4 have those. So we'd be very excited to see Santee adopt something like this, and we'd be happy to provide you any information that we could to help. So here's what happens if we get a comprehensive tobacco retail license ordinance with a flavor ban in it. There's going to be less access to youth, the flavors and the cool looks, the accessory looks that make them enticing, less addiction of kids, fewer health and medical costs, less death and disease from tobacco use down the road. So, healthier community for everybody. And there are plenty of cessation options as well. So that's what I wanted to come and like touch on with you, let you know that that's an option for a safer Santee for our kids. And I'm happy to take any of your questions.
Great, thanks a lot. Any speaker slips?
No, sir.
Just kidding. All right, Dr. Foreman. How'd I know?
I was pausing to give you a chance. Thank you for this. Certainly an important effort, and I am surprised that Santee is kind of an outlier here in the East County of not having this ordinance in place. A couple things that I would like to comment on. The first is comparing this to COVID. They're different. COVID is a virus that we contract through exposure to various things in the environment, like any other virus. Tobacco use is choice. However, I was expecting, and I'm kind of disappointed, I didn't hear you guys talk about the ACE study, the Adverse Childhood Experiences study. On this kind of work, I find that it's very important to understand the essence of what this study found and what it continues to reveal to communities when they're engaging in prevention efforts. Without going on too much about the different types of prevention, this is one of 3 primary types of prevention, and it's an important one. But what the ACE study found, and when I've heard Drs. Felitti and Anda, the 2 primary researchers on it, describe it, tobacco was spotlighted in it. It was like the entry-level effect of growing up in an adverse childhood experience environment as early as 8 years old. Back when they were doing the study, initiated the study, and this continues to be revisited around the country, actually around the world now. What they're finding is youngsters have easy access to tobacco products. And seeing this bag go around, I was kind of surprised at all that. I don't keep attuned to the varieties of them. And it's like, wow, it's definitely being marketed to youngsters. But just think about how easy it is to walk around a neighborhood, see a cigarette butt laying on the ground, pick it up and find a way to light it, to chew it, to ingest it somehow. And back to what the study was finding is that those of us that may be experiencing adverse childhood experiences, anything before the age of 18, we would use substances like tobacco to change the way we feel. And tobacco, nicotine, not tobacco, but nicotine itself, being a very extremely addictive substance, starts to set the stage then for, you guys laid it out, that becoming addicted. And if you haven't started smoking before 26, you probably won't. But all the other things that start coming along that they found correlations to tobacco use, lifelong connection to health, to checking out of this life early, in other words, dying earlier than the population, extremely dramatic. And the study began, the way I recall, it was in a clinic that Dr. Felitti was running with Kaiser Hospital. It was an obesity clinic and a smoking cessation clinic. And he stumbled upon this idea that their patients that were coming in for these types of treatment had an amazing and robust adverse childhood experience background. He wasn't expecting to see that. He was working with people on how to lose weight, sometimes up to 100 pounds non-surgically in a year, very successful programs, and he stumbled into it, and then they started a formal research program, and they discovered that you start looking at what starts hitting people my age and maybe the age of many of us here in this stage of life has huge correlations to what was going on in our life when we were kids. And smoking was the one thing that they said, this is a huge indicator. So it's great, from my perspective and my experience, it's great to be able to come in at this level, but to not stop there, to at least be aware that if we're interacting with somebody selling to a kid, what's going on in the kid's life requiring them to go in to try to access nicotine to change the way they feel. That's a complicated process. It's hard to do. The deputies aren't going to ask a guy, hey, how's it going at home, and all this other stuff. But some of the key indicators of, I'm not going to hit all 10 of them, but there were 10 of the things that they identified in the study. Incarcerated parents, mental illness in the family, one or more parents absent in the family through abandonment, through divorce, through death, family violence, intimate partner violence. Well, that's only 4. There's a long list, well, it's a list of 10 that are easily identifiable, that is part of naturally growing up, but when they start to accumulate, and once that score gets over a 4, it's the correlations increase sometimes up to 12 or 1,500 fold. That's a lot. Right into intravenous drug use. And then everything that comes with that, the health disorders, the COPD, the heart disease, liver disease, lung disease, cancers, orthopedic injuries. It just hangs on and doesn't let go for the rest of life. So great prevention effort, but to not be aware of the ACE study, and maybe it could be some, I know we've been briefed on it, various forms of this committee have been briefed on the ACE before. It might be worthwhile to get briefed on it again. So I love what you're doing, but if you could just add that to, look into it and say, hey, what is this? And how is it impacting? How do we approach the other communities in the area that are also doing this so that they can be aware also? Okay, thanks.
Anybody else? David?
So I was just confused. The initial slide said that we banned flavored tobacco products in California, but then you're suggesting that we ban flavored tobacco products in Santee? I don't understand. Because I know, I was just at an event yesterday where somebody had a flavored vape. So I know you can get them. How is that possible?
There are places that don't necessarily check for flavored products. The first year or so of the state ban, it kind of felt like retailers were dumping flavors in El Cajon for a year. If you're not checking for them, then you're again the retailers who are not consistently and rigorously tested for compliance with that may not feel as compelled to follow that ban.
So if I walked into a tobacco shop and they had flavored vapes on the shelf, that would be something they could be fined for.
Yes, under state law.
And then, but I can go on Amazon and they can ship to me.
Unfortunately, yes. Theoretically, no. But in reality, yes.
So that's also something we need to look at and saying, you know what? There's a lot of products that you can get on Amazon that can't be sold in certain states. So, okay, thank you.
Sure.
David?
Yeah, you stole my thunder about the flavor, because I was a little confused about that as well. I know that you mentioned the unincorporated areas of San Diego County, which are around us. There is a program within the county that talks about addressing tobacco issues and raising awareness around that. I'm just wondering can you talk a little bit about some of the successes? You talked about the El Cajon one, but the unincorporated areas and other communities, how successful they've been in addressing this, and how that would motivate Santee to do it as well.
Sure. The county's tobacco retail license ordinance just really got on its feet. It went into effect in 2021. The year of 2022, calendar year 22, was when they first started requiring licenses, and they did some compliance testing to see what the story was. It was shocking how many retailers throughout unincorporated San Diego County were selling. It was north of 60%. The second year, and they were still trying to figure out the ins and outs of it and had not begun adjudication, it was lower, but it was still way over 20%. This is the third year they're just beginning adjudication. I think that's going to tell the tale as to whether or not the retailers are going to seriously comply with it. So I wish I could give you like a nice glide path to what the numbers are doing. In the city of La Mesa, they just passed their tobacco retail license this January last year, and they're just getting the implementation up off the ground. Lemon Grove has had a retail license, again, the memory, they've had a retail license for a number of years, but unfortunately, because they're a general law city, their fees and fines are not the kind of thing that would get your attention, and they have been struggling to enforce it. As you might imagine, they've had some fiscal challenges, and so they're not really able to enforce it, I think, to the level that they'd like to. We're hoping to work with them to see if they can't find a way to strengthen that ordinance a little bit. But that's kind of what's going on right now in the neighborhood.
The other question I had is, I know with certain alcohol regulations, there's officers that will go out and inspect. Imperial Beach has a program like that. Obviously, there could be some kind of similar program here in Santee. And I'm just wondering, you also talk about cost recovery. Can you go a little bit into that a little bit more and maybe expand on maybe the hidden cost recovery, for example, less impacts on public health and costs for folks who are going to the hospital or having lung issues, et cetera, et cetera. We see that in the alcohol realm. I'm wondering if you can relate it to the tobacco, nicotine realm.
I wish I could give you numbers on that too, David. When I was talking about cost recovery, I was really thinking about our friend Mayor Minto and city budgets. What I meant by that was just the straight up cost. If you're a tax-paying resident of Santee, what's it going to cost you? And what we have found is certainly the county used a Department of Justice grant to kind of get the thing up off the ground to find out what cost recovery actually was going to be. So they had kind of this financial fallback. They had a little cushion. If they charged the fine or undercharged the fee, then they didn't take a hit to the budget. So that's a possibility for guaranteeing the cost recovery. But some of the hidden costs that I'm sure that all of you are aware of are administrative costs for issuing the licenses, the administrative costs of notifying violators, the cost of doing the compliance operations, and then the cost, if there's an appeal, the cost of the appeals process. And so those are some of the things that you want to try to make sure that the taxpayers are not on the hook for. Because in my mind, we're not trying to stop the legal sale of a legal product. We're interested in making sure that the illegal sale of that product does not adversely impact the youth in our East region. And so that train of thought left me at the station. I was going somewhere with that.
Just again to follow up. So the things I was referring to is that, folks who are suffering from a lung-related illness because of smoking, whether it's COPD or lung cancer, et cetera, there's a potential strain on the EMS system and the cost of public health responding to those kinds of things. And so we look at that and not only we think about that, but also impact on youth with asthma. We've talked about secondhand smoke and all those kinds of things, which I know that you've been working on as well. So cost recovery can be both the administrative and operational aspect, but it can also be looking at the expanded impact on public health. And I just kind of wanted to get that out into the ecosphere.
Yeah, thank you, David. Also, I think you mentioned a officer going and doing some of these compliance checks where, we've had our compliance testing and there might be, a paper underneath the counter with all the flavors on it. When it's a younger person where officer, clothed in the officer clothing, they're not going to bring out that little sneaky list. So I think the compliance testing, we use a natural protocol, which would just be, a youngster going in trying to purchase tobacco. And so I think that testing is more accurate. Thank you.
Before you go on, just to let you know that we could probably create something similar to our social host ordinance. It's twofold. One is there's a natural fines that come along with the, punishment. And then we also address it administratively. And what we've had people do in the past is say, you know what, I'll pay the administrative fine not to have a criminal record, so to speak. And it's been very effective, especially if you, let's say that you're somebody who has some kind of public, certification or something that you can't have little spots on your record like that. And there are store owners that are involved in some public sector, things. And so that could be a very easy way of getting compliance also as an administrative. I don't know if you've looked at that anywhere else or even heard about doing that anywhere else. I know when we did our social host ordinance, we actually had a family that, they had a really, really good violation. This has been a while back, so you guys wouldn't have heard about it. And the fellow that was hosting that was a younger fellow. He was in the military. He had a clearance. And the last thing he needed on his record was some kind of criminal charge. So that one went over really well for him. So they just, okay, I'll give you $1,000 fine.
I believe that. And that's one of the reasons I think that El Cajon went the route of having an administrative action. So it's not against the person, it's not against the clerk, it's against the license.
Right.
And I think that's the way they kind of smooth that a little bit.
So the thing is, though, having a violation against a clerk, for instance, is very important because if there's no consequence for the clerk, they'll just keep doing whatever they want to do. And who knows if, they do it, at the direction of the business owner. So hard to say. So twofold is always a good way of looking at it. So, Steve?
I think you pretty much went the direction I was going to go.
Oh, great minds think alike then. Down the end.
Aha. Thank you. Pardon my tardiness. I had another meeting before this. I'm Brian Wilburn, the principal of Santana. And so I want to tell you both thank you so much for looking out for our youth. I'm my 41st year in the district, and the number of student contacts we are making for vape possession and use is exploding exponentially. And believe me, many, many, many of them are flavored. So if you tell them they can't get them, they absolutely can get them. I'm asking kids, say, when did you start this? And they're telling us 4th grade, 5th grade. They're addicted to this stuff now. And we took one off the kid recently that actually was part of the body of the vape was a video game. So tell me they're not looking for new ways to market and be attracted to kids. So whatever we can do to keep them out of our kids' hands, I'm all for.
This is a little disturbing too. I'm a mom of 3 young men, and they're out of high school, thankfully, and legal age now, but still I don't want them smoking. Now I'm seeing sweatshirts with the hoodies, the strings are vapes. So they could be in class chewing on their sweatshirt string, and there's vape products in there. There's no smoke, it's like smokeless. So I'm sure you have a challenging task to locate all those hidden vapes, especially. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody? Kristen?
So I guess I have a question since we have law enforcement in the room. First of all, ladies, I applaud the work that you're doing and standing in unison with Brian. Obviously, I want to protect our youth, and I know that he has a really difficult job along with the other campuses in town. My initial thought, having a young adult and teenage child, are that although this is really great work, this is not how our kids are obtaining vape. So just being very transparent, the majority of the kids who are getting vape who are underage aren't walking into retail locations in Santee and buying them directly. They're buying them from older people who are then reselling them to children and marking them up and making a profit, just FYI. So I'm wondering, since we have law enforcement in the room, do we have any insight on what ramifications would come from somebody doing that? If I'm an adult selling products of tobacco use to a child, what are the ramifications currently? And maybe that's more or less where I would want to lean in some of these efforts. I've seen it's not just like older siblings, finding little brothers and sisters. They create social media accounts and find kids online and DM them and target kids specifically in their area. This is how these are being sold. So do you have any insight to ramifications for adults doing this currently?
Yeah, so the way we become aware on things like this is by somebody that sees something, says something, right? Like we receive anonymous tips, or we get Crime Stopper tips saying, hey, this person is selling these products to minors. This is like their Instagram page, for example, things like that. Then our detectives get to work. They start doing a little research on the person. Hey, how can we get in there? Because just getting that information doesn't mean we can just go arrest them, right? So we kind of have to build a case, or maybe find somebody that can buy this product from this person so we can prove it in court and things like that. And it's difficult. It's very difficult, especially with products that are illegal to children, but not necessarily illegal to the rest of the population, right? It creates a little more difficulty in proving these cases, but we try. And if they do, some of the charges, for example, is like contributing to the delinquency of a minor and things like that.
Thank you. Yeah, and I realize, again, that's difficult, but that's probably what is happening more so than illegal sales at a retail level.
Yeah, and you're right. We've actually arrested people with a pallet's worth of vapes, for example, in their garage. And, they bring them from somewhere else, like LA, for example. They buy them wholesale, and then they're selling them to their friends. And you got this 18-year-old driving around a Mercedes, for example, because they're making so much money from selling vapes and things like that.
And I think you've hit one nail seriously on the head, because I think I believe that the state law prohibits furnishing these products to people who are underage, and I think a number of the local TRLs also prohibit that. So that would, in addition to whatever criminal penalties you might face under the state law, the local law can impose an administrative penalty. So that, again, if you have to know that the adult's coming in to purchase it for somebody, to furnish it to somebody, but if that's proven, then your license is also in jeopardy. I'm going to tell you another story that I heard just earlier this week. We were talking with somebody about a local tobacco retailer license. She said that her lifelong smoker dad in his 70s was in El Cajon with his daughter, who was doing an environmental heat mapping project, and he needed some more cigarettes. And so we went into a retailer in El Cajon with his 70-year-old face and looked to buy tobacco. And they said, let me see your ID. Seriously? Yeah. I don't have it. I can't sell it to you. That happened twice. The third time his daughter said, look, I'll just buy him. I've got my ID. I'll buy him for him. He said, I can't sell it to you to give to somebody else. So these local ordinances, it's crazy, but they will work. I mean, I would love to have seen that man's face. God love him.
You know, it's kind of fun. It reminds me, we were just talking because like the old rules on furnishing narcotics, marijuana, whatever, used to apply to you didn't even have to sell it. You just furnish it, right? And I remember the days when you sit back and you watch, 5 people on a park bench and they all get their joint and they take a puff and they pass it to the next one. And so you arrest each one of them for a felony for furnishing a narcotic to another person. And I don't think we go that far here, but it would certainly send a message, though, wouldn't it? A bunch of kids sitting around passing a vape stick. You can't do that. So, well, those were the good days, right? So, Peter.
Thank you both for being here. And my question, Krista and I think, are on the same page here with our thinking is and specifically towards having a TRL that's addressed towards businesses. Do you have some documentation or some studies on where youth are getting their tobacco products? I have no basis to object to a TRL, but if you're looking at implementing something like that, I think it would be important to note really how much of a participation to the crisis retailers are participating in selling to youth. And perhaps Principal Bryan can, or the sheriffs can provide some insight on where are youth actually getting their products from. And I'd like to know what percentage actually come from retailers when you talk about a TRL.
We are a small but mighty nonprofit, and you are looking at 1/4 of the staff right here, and only 3 of us are full-time. I don't have that information, but California does produce a regular survey of smoking habits among young people in California, and I can certainly bring some of that to the table next time, or I can pass it along to this committee to share. What we do know is that the word of mouth on where to buy, that's kind of what the deal is. And places that don't enforce or aren't known to enforce are more likely to be the place that the kids go. The other thing that I would just add is I think there's something to be said for eating this elephant one bite at a time. And if we can make it harder for kids to buy in legit stores in Santee, then we might knock a few off the list who are looking at a lifetime of addiction. It's not going to solve the whole problem, but it might take a little bite out of it.
Think about eating that elephant one bite at a time. It's a lot better if it's well done.
In barbecue sauce.
Exactly.
Mayor
Okay,
Minto? Mayor Minto? Sorry. I had one more thing if I could.
You're back.
I am back. I just want to emphasize too that a TRL, while it would, focused on those who are under 18, also applies to those who are under 21, those who are over 21, in that we've seen continuation of sales of flavored tobacco after the ban. And so the opportunity to at least address that portion is important. We know that I have friends who, they couldn't get their flavored Zins anymore, so they stopped using Zin and started, going into a recovery mode. So, when we think about a TRL, it does span from 0 to 100 and beyond. So just to kind of throw that out there as well.
Thanks. This is really good. We hear about these things, kind of through the grapevine here and there, but it's not till you really get a professional, presentation that you kind of go, what can we do with this? So, James, can you make a note here so that when Marlene gets back, maybe we can sit down with the city attorney and look at how we can maybe create a TRL. Now, one question I do have is that, since the county has an ordinance, the sheriff can, it doesn't matter where you're at, what city you're in, you can still enforce that county code in the city. So, I mean, if you come across something that's, that egregious until we get our own code, because you're right, being a charter gives us a lot more clout. But, I mean, that might be something you kick around. I don't know. You know what? This attorney or your sheriff may not want you to do that, but we certainly would welcome it. So, all right then, let's go ahead and say thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have some information to share. I'll just pass those along.
That's cool. All right, then that takes us down to the next item, which is item number 5, which is communication from committee and staff members. Let's just start all the way down at the end with Brian. Do you have anything for us, Brian? Peter? I'm good, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Kristen? David?
Yes, sir. So I just would like to throw out there that tomorrow at 11 a.m., the Binge and Underage Drinking Initiative is going to be doing a workshop about the Sober Curious movement and how young adults use social media to promote safety and moderation. And we're advancing the Sober Curious. Folks can find out more information at budisd.org. That's budisd.org. It's a Binge and Underage Drinking Initiative. Thanks.
Can you say that one more time, please? The
website?
The website. Or
It's so it's budisd.org. And it's the Binge and Underage Drinking Initiative.
Gotcha.
Thanks.
Thank you. I want to make sure I got that right. Okay, great. Next.
Nothing.
Nothing?
Next.
Dr. Foreman is going to raise a concern with regard to what is happening with our DEI effort. So beyond that, I have nothing.
All right then. Thank you. Steve?
I likewise will defer to Mark.
Well, okay then. Mark, you're up.
It's been a while since this much of the committee has been present all at once. So I started noticing a couple months ago that a regular mainstay on the agenda for this meeting was a DEI update. Mm-hmm. And I've noticed that it's absent for the last several meetings. And first, I didn't think much of it. Then I go, well, wait a second. One of the recommendations that showed up in our report and in the roadmap was an ongoing revisiting of the concepts and the ideas so that it becomes embodied with everything that the city does. It's not a project. It's not something that you came up with and then, oh, sorry, we did it, now let's move on and go do something else. The amount of work that my colleagues here and I and then many others had participated in that ad hoc committee. We worked on it for, 2.5 years, something like that. And it was seemed to be well received by council at the time and accepted. So to be able to make it something that becomes embodied within what the city does takes effort. And I personally can recognize that there may be a cost involved. And that's always a challenge to any entity. If there's money involved, where do we get it? What do we do with it? But sometimes with this kind of an idea, it's more about also just simply embodying how we interact with each other. That's the whole essence of it to begin with. So I just wanted to bring it up that it's something that was kind of sticking on my mind. And as my colleagues all show up today also, and we go, hey, yeah, they noticed it too. So, whether there's an explanation and maybe it's planning to be revisited when Marlene gets back or, I don't know.
Well, we can certainly ask her about it to find out, what's going on, because I know there were some other things that we're supposed to be doing with it too. I know that we're looking at planning, another event. I off the top of my head, I don't remember when that is. But we want to do like what we did last year. So we keep ongoing. And so you're right, we haven't heard anything for a while on it. Maybe it's time to look back.
If I may, I've actually heard from some of the organizations that participated in last year's event, and they've asked us what Santee is doing, continuing to do in that regard. And I think it's really critical that we keep the momentum going. And whatever form that looks like, whether it doesn't have to be, because I know that was a Herculean event. It really was, and required man hours, just hundreds of man hours to put it together. It doesn't have to be that extensive, but there needs to be, at least, I believe, to keep the momentum going, there needs to be a light shined on. Here is what Santee is doing. It could be with regard to communication, with employees. It could have to do with what Parks and Rec, or the park department, recreation department is doing. It could be along any lines, but there still needs to be a continued touch of emphasis on that. Otherwise, it's going to fall by the wayside that it has. This effort has fallen in so many municipalities. Oh yes, there's a lot of work, and then it just dies. And I don't want that for Santee. I want the reputation. We want the ad hoc committee, and based on the reception that we received both from committee members here as well as the city council when we presented at city council, it seemed to me that there is a focused determination to keep that momentum going in some shape, in some form. So that's why we bring that forward.
David?
I want to thank my colleagues for bringing this up, because I've been out and I did notice that it was not on the agenda, and I thought there may have been a conversation about it, and I'm glad to hear that not glad to hear that there wasn't. Anyways, there's things that can be done. We talk about perpetuating it at the front of everyone's agenda, and that literally means putting it on things, our values on agendas. It means posting them on, the wall. It means including them when the city does its Santee TV. There's a Santee app. So all these different aspects of, how to get those community values out there are there. I know there's logistics, there's, technicalities, but we had talked about trying to get at least the community values visually out there in a more prevalent way. That then leads to awareness, which then leads to people asking, well, what are these values about? And we can engage, because having an annual event is nice, but having something that's permanently ingrained into the society and the system is a lot better. So I don't know, the new city clerk, congratulations. By the way, I haven't seen you since your promotion. If there's been any discussion in your office, I know that Bree was going to develop a marketing plan around this, and I know she's been out. So there's just a few things that are kind of sitting out there that I haven't been around to know what's going on, but now that I hear that it's still an issue, I'm a little concerned that, things are starting to fall off the wayside.
This presentation that we just heard on tobacco, should the city decide to pick up such a project and try to make an ordinance, would be a great time to kind of implement what David's suggesting, is it now becomes part of everything the city does. You're going to pass a new ordinance. Well, how does this ordinance fit in with the concepts, the values, the beliefs, the ideals that are involved in this? It sounds like it's this humongous project, but it could be just simply be something that this is part of what you do every day. It shows up. It's like, who are we leaving out on this project? We already heard suggestions here that, well, this enforcement action is great, but what about the ones that aren't retailers? There's some diversity. There's some inclusion showing up here. How do you access those guys? How do you enforce it? So, just the opportunities lay out in front of the government as they're trying to provide what the citizens need. And in essence, that's all that it is. It sounds overly simplistic, but if we don't think about it, if, like David's saying, well, put these things on city documents, have them show up everywhere. It's like all of a sudden they become part of just a normal conversation whenever any effort's going on. Somebody comes in to do a presentation and you say, oh, by the way, if you're going to present to council or present to a committee or something, can you kind of pay attention to this also? Not being the main thing that guides it or anything, just say, yeah, we're thinking about this too. We don't want to leave anybody out. Or maybe you do want to leave somebody out. Well, stand by, you know. Yeah. That may be overly simplistic to say it like that, but to me, it's like, it's not hard. Just talk about it.
Okay. Kristen.
So just trying to kind of come full circle here. I feel like I'm trying to hear everybody. And Mark, what I think you're saying is that you want to make sure it's not just talked about in a room and then forgotten about when we leave said room, right? And action is taken. So I feel like as committee members, maybe it's our responsibility to take it that step further. So I know we just discussed an annual event. The city is hosting an annual event. It's on March 15th. It's called Discover Your Community, and it is the follow-up to the community event from last year. So my soft suggestion would be that maybe a two-part here is that we, or you, as an ad hoc committee, reach out to the city folks who are coordinating that event and see how you can incorporate yourselves into that once annual event and be within the community, and then maybe set an actual appointment with Bree, the marketing manager, and possibly city manager Marlene Best on how we can create a marketing plan and actually roll it out. So we're talking about soft suggestions here, and they're all really great suggestions, but to put it into motion, I think it's going to take us making the ask a little bit and taking it one step further than just talking about it here. So maybe this is me making a motion to ask the ad hoc committee to go out and seek meetings with the individuals at the city level that are in charge of these two things and take it one step further so that we can get it in motion, because I think you guys have some bright ideas that need to get enacted here.
So I think, James, let's make a note that we may want to invite some of the ad hoc committee members to participate in the planning.
Absolutely.
And I think that's what has been the challenge. Actually, one of the vendors that was at the booth had heard about that. And that's how I heard about it. I looked back in my minutes and I saw nothing in the minutes from COMPOC that referenced that event. And so we had no awareness that something like that was being planned. So I can't speak for my colleagues, but I'm certainly, happy to step forward and participate in the planning and reach out to the individuals that I know are interested in supporting Santee in this effort. So,
Well, it's a new year. Let's get some new invigorating ideas going. So, it's like a renaissance. Old school. Well, you were a teacher, renaissance. That's the right word for it, isn't it? Okay, then. Anything?
Yeah, I wanted to, winter's going by quick, and we've had a much drier winter than we've had in recent times, and our riverbeds and our brush areas are very dry, and I know we've had multiple fires still in the riverbed, and I wanted to thank our sheriff's department and our amazing fire department here in Santee, because people may not know it, but they're responding to fires in the riverbed and criminal activity in the riverbed quite regularly. I had to call 911 about a week ago for a fire in the riverbed, and I was just amazed how quickly you guys responded. I want to say thank you for all you do to keep us safe. And also, Bree asked me, since Marlene's not here, because I know Marlene would have brought this up, but the city of Santee has had a long involvement, kind of adopted 2 military units, 2 Marine units here in the San Diego region for many, many years, probably a couple of decades. And last year, this will be the second year. So next month, a month from today, I believe, on Thursday, February 13th, is the city of Santee's and us at Carlton Oaks, we're going to be involved with it as well. Golf tournament for the Heroes Golf Classic. to support the Marine Helicopter Unit at Miramar, and all the proceeds go to their Marine birthday ball. So if you want more information on the city's website and their social media accounts have a link to it. It's Bree asked me to share that.
Great. Thank you. Donna?
Nothing new.
Steve? Anything down there on the end? James, anything?
No, sir.
You know, the only thing I will say is not necessarily a policing type thing. However, it could be because I went to an event over the weekend with the National Electrical Contractors Association. And a lot of things going on with those folks that I didn't even know about. One of the things that they have now, or have had for a little while, is a veteran electrical education program, VEEP. It's a hard one to remember for some reason. But the reason why I mention this is because you might have some people who are discharging, getting out of the military, or even some people who are still in the military but have maybe a year left to go. And, they're not going to be deployed again. They're going to be in one place. And this program, you apply and they do interviews and find what your aptitude is towards maybe electrical engineering. And they offer a 5-year apprenticeship program for free. So if you're a veteran and you're thinking, man, I don't know what I'm going to do for a living after I get out, or maybe I was, electrical engineer in the military, and now you have to get a certification on the outside, that might be something that you could get going for yourself. And so it could be a pre-homeless issue, putting people to work. There's a lot of people there that will get you into business because you really have to be in the business while you're going through the apprenticeship as part of the learning experience. So I thought, there's a lot of groups out there. We have VECA and some other veterans groups that might be able to address some of the issues with some of our military who need some guidance on where they're going to go from here when they discharge.